Confirmation, it finds its roots as early as Acts chapter 2, with the custom of the laying on of hands and the invocation of the Holy Spirit upon believers that the early church encounters. Confirmation in the Catholic Church is one of the 3 sacraments of initiation into full communion with all Catholics around the world. All Catholics of all time, both the living and the dead, the souls in purgatory, the saints in heaven, and the church militant here on earth. Confirmation is typically celebrated in the West as one enters about the age of 12, 13, or 14, with this emphasis on becoming a soldier for Christ and maturing in one's faith. There's another way to celebrate confirmation as well, and in the Eastern rites, let's say the Byzantine rites among many, confirmation is typically celebrated alongside of baptism and the Eucharist. You might ask, how is that possible? Well, let me explain the distinctions. In the Eastern Church, it is very common to celebrate all 3 sacraments together. The unity of the sacraments, baptism, confirmation, and the Eucharist, are kept as a unified whole. So, take an infant. They are baptized, somewhat similarly to what you would see in Roman Catholicism, and then they would receive the sacred chrism on their forehead or on top of their head, which marks the act of confirmation, be sealed with the gift of the Holy Spirit. And then for their first communion, imagine this, a child would receive just a little droplet of the precious blood from the chalice of the priest placed on their tongue. And they make their first communion as an infant, even though they have no idea of what exactly is going on with them. Later on, they'll get the catechesis for that, and then eventually they'll start receiving Holy Communion at about the age of 7, the age of reason, when you normally see children in the Roman Catholic Church make their first communion with their beautiful white dresses and the white suits that the children wear in preparation, often celebrated in the month of May, the month of Our Lady. So you see, confirmation is just one piece of this continuum of the 3 sacraments of initiation. So we might ask ourselves, what exactly is going on in confirmation? Well, in order to understand confirmation, you first have to understand a little bit about baptism. So in the sacrament of baptism, not only is the recipient of the sacrament receiving the indwelling of the Most Holy Trinity into their souls, but it's accompanied by the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity. In addition, the recipients also receive the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And these gifts of the Holy Spirit are fortitude, understanding, wisdom, counsel, knowledge, piety, and fear of the Lord. All of these gifts that are received are then confirmed in the sacrament of confirmation. So baptism is the first place where individuals receive these 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit, and then they are confirmed in confirmation. Notice that when the bishop, who typically celebrates the sacrament of confirmation in the Roman Catholic, the Latin Catholic Church, when the individual comes forward for confirmation, he does not say, the bishop that is, does not say, receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit. He says, be sealed with the gifts of the Holy Spirit, meaning that the gifts are already there, they're in the soul, and that the sacrament is merely confirming and sealing, and this is signified by the chrism that you receive on the forehead, a sacred oil that is blessed during the Mass of Chrism on Holy Thursday, typically in many dioceses. And this is the sealing or the confirming of that which has already been received in the sacrament of baptism. Now, as I mentioned, in many places in the West, it's very common for the sacrament of confirmation to be received at the age of 12, 13, or 14. Many times it coincides with the end of grade school. So persons in 7th or 8th grade, sort of junior high years, maybe getting into the first years of high school, where they're becoming, if you like, adults in the faith, more mature in the faith, owning the faith for their own, testifying in their own voice to their witness to Christ. it has these overtones of maturation and militancy. And here I don't mean violence, but in the sense of owning one's own faith and testifying in public to it. But the tradition of the East, which I explained earlier, of sort of upfront downloading all the sacraments onto the recipient, is just another way that this is celebrated in a different part of the Catholic Church, the Eastern Church versus the Western Church. Confirmation is, as all the sacraments are, incredibly powerful, especially also when it's witnessed in the context of the Easter Vigil. The Easter Vigil is the conclusion of the Sacred Triduum, which begins on Holy Thursday, the middle day is Good Friday, and then Saturday night before Easter Sunday, the Easter Vigil, is where individuals who were baptized as Catholics or baptized as other Christians, but never received the sacrament of confirmation, are now sealed with the gifts of the Holy Spirit and strengthened and fortified in order to be of witness in the world to the love of Christ. This is an incredibly powerful moment. And one of the beauties of the confirmation process is that you'll see individuals adopt confirmation saints. So they'll adopt a saint that speaks to them, their life or their testimony or their witness really speaks to them, and they'll adopt that confirmation saint and that confirmation saint's name as their own. It may not appear on any official document, civil document, for instance, like a birth certificate or a marriage license, not at all. But it's a private devotion that the individual has to that particular saint. And also, part of the beauty of the sacrament, especially for those who are receiving the sacrament at 12, 13, or 14, or later even as adults, is that confirmation also usually means the presence of a confirmation sponsor. This is a fully fledged Catholic over the age of 16 and is in good standing, who accompanies the candidate in their preparation for reception of the sacrament, but continues hopefully to, in a spiritual friendship with that individual as they mature and grow in their Christian witness. So for instance, at that Easter Vigil I mentioned, it's very beautiful sometimes to see a Catholic spouse become the sponsor for their Protestant spouse who's becoming Catholic and being confirmed in the Catholic Church. It signifies a real sort of coming together of the couple in a much more even complete way than they experienced when they first married, because not only are they now bound by marriage, but they're also bound by this commonly held faith in the Catholic Church. An incredibly powerful moment. So confirmation, for those who are curious about its biblical roots, is incredibly ancient. It finds its roots as early as Acts chapter 2, with the custom of the laying on of hands and the invocation of the Holy Spirit upon believers that the early church encounters. So the idea of baptism, confirmation, Eucharist, again, as sacraments of initiation and as really as the foundational core sacraments of the church, find their roots and their practice in the early church. Again, here we're talking about the 2nd century, an incredible story in the Catholic Church of literally generation upon generation upon generation of individuals who have given witness to Christ. And perhaps some of them, as we know, later called to give that ultimate witness as martyrs. That's the sacrament of confirmation. If you haven't received the sacrament of confirmation, especially if you're a baptized Catholic, I cannot encourage you more strongly to seek that out the next time the OCIA program runs around, or if there's an adult confirmation class in your parish, so that you can receive the benefit and the fullness of all the sacraments of initiation. If you like this content, always feel free to click on the links above. As always, like, subscribe, and share. And again, thanks and God bless.